The Bordeaux Estate's grand tasting room buzzed with California's wine elite as I quietly took my assigned seat at the far end of the table. My father's 60th birthday celebration was exactly what you'd expect from the Anderson family: pretentious wine talk, exaggerated success stories, and enough ego to fill every bottle in the cellar. I smoothed down my simple black dress from a small boutique in Paris. Not that anyone here would recognize true French fashion. They were too busy fawning over my brother Marcus's latest wine venture, another overpriced label with a mediocre rating. Water for Ms. Olivia? The sommelier approached with 2 bottles, an exclusive vintage champagne and a crystal decanter of water. He glanced uncertainly at Marcus, who gave a subtle nod. The champagne is reserved for people who actually contribute to the wine industry, Marcus announced loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. We wouldn't want to waste the good stuff on someone who couldn't tell a Bordeaux from a Burgundy. If he only knew that I'd just finished a private tasting with the most prestigious wine critics in France last week. That my small wine consulting business was actually a cover for Anderson Global Vintners, a company that had secretly acquired some of the finest vineyards across 3 continents. Water is fine, I smiled, watching the sommelier pour the crystal-clear liquid. Not everyone can be a wine magnate like Marcus. He preened at that, missing the irony completely. The massive screens around the tasting room displayed various wine industry news channels, all buzzing about today's biggest story: the mysterious acquisition of Bordeaux Estate, one of California's most prestigious vineyards. Nobody knew who was behind the purchase except for my small team of trusted executives. Speaking of success, my stepmother Victoria chimed in, her voice dripping with false sympathy. How's that little wine shop of yours doing, Olivia? Still selling those affordable bottles? I sipped my water, thinking about the $12 million rare wine collection I'd acquired last month. Business is steady. Some people prefer a more personal approach to wine. Personal approach? Marcus scoffed. You mean amateur? Real wine business is about large-scale production and marketing. Right, Dad? Our father, James Anderson, beamed at his son. Exactly. Marcus understands the industry. His new label is already in talks with major distributors. I kept my expression neutral, knowing that those same distributors had quietly approached my company last week, impressed by our portfolio of boutique vineyards and exceptional vintages. Oh look, Victoria gestured to one of the screens. They're about to announce the new owner of Bordeaux Estate. Rumor has it it's a major international consortium. My phone buzzed discreetly, a message from my chief operations officer. Everything's in place. Mr. Bordeaux ready for the announcement. Wine Spectator standing by for exclusive interview. Marcus leaned forward eagerly. I tried to buy this place last year, but they wouldn't even take my calls. Said they were looking for someone who truly understood wine tradition. Can't imagine why they rejected you, I murmured into my water glass, remembering the scathing reviews his latest vintage had received. The current owner of Bordeaux Estate, Pierre Bordeaux himself, approached the front of the room. The elderly Frenchman had been looking for the perfect buyer for his family's legacy, someone who would respect the vineyard's heritage while bringing it into the future. Distinguished guests, Pierre began, his accent thick with emotion, today marks a new chapter for Bordeaux Estate. After careful consideration, I have found the perfect steward for our beloved vineyard. Marcus straightened his tie, probably assuming he'd somehow secured the deal without knowing it. Our father was already reaching for his phone, ready to document his son's moment of triumph. A true connoisseur, Pierre continued, someone who understands that great wine is not about marketing or mass production, but about passion, tradition, and innovation. Victoria nudged my father excitedly. This will be perfect for Marcus's portfolio. Therefore, Pierre's eyes found mine across the room. It gives me great pleasure to announce that Bordeaux Estate is now part of Anderson Global Vintners, under the leadership of Ms. Olivia Anderson. The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus's champagne glass froze halfway to his lips. Victoria's perfectly maintained smile cracked. And my father, for the first time in years, actually looked at me. I stood slowly, smoothing my dress. Thank you, Pierre. I believe you were saving a special vintage for this announcement. Pierre snapped his fingers, and servers appeared with bottles of a legendary 1982 Bordeaux, a wine that Marcus had once dismissed as overrated because he couldn't secure any for his collection. Perhaps now, I said, accepting a glass, we can all drink something worth celebrating. The stunned silence shattered as Marcus's voice cracked across the room. This is impossible. You run a discount wine shop in Napa. I took a deliberate sip of the 1982 Bordeaux, letting its perfect complexity play across my palate. Actually, Anderson Global Vintners owns that shop, along with 37 other vineyards across France, Italy, and California. Victoria's hand trembled as she reached for her champagne. But the capital required the connections. Would you like to see the portfolio? I offered, nodding to my assistant Sarah, who began distributing elegant leather folders to the assembled guests. We've been quite busy these past 5 years while everyone thought I was just playing at selling wine. The screens around the room switched to a carefully prepared presentation. Images of pristine vineyards filled the displays. Historic estates in Bordeaux, sun-drenched hills in Tuscany, and boutique wineries across Napa Valley, all now part of Anderson Global Vintners. Chateau Lumiere in Bordeaux, I narrated as the images changed. Acquired 2 years ago. Villa Toscana in Chianti, purchased last summer. The legendary Thompson Estate in Napa, which we acquired last month. My father finally found his voice. Thompson Estate? But Marcus tried to buy that one. Yes, I smiled, remembering Marcus's failed hostile takeover attempt. They preferred our approach of preserving their traditional methods while modernizing their distribution. The room buzzed with whispers as California's wine elite realized they'd been drinking my wines for years without knowing it. Every bottle Marcus had dismissed as lucky finds from unknown vintners had actually come from my vineyards. This is some kind of trick, Marcus insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. You know nothing about fine wine. Pierre Bordeaux stepped forward again. On the contrary, Monsieur Anderson. Your sister's knowledge of wine is exceptional. Her blind tasting abilities are legendary among true connoisseurs. Would you like a demonstration? I offered, gesturing to the extensive wine collection lining the walls. We could make it interesting. Say a blind tasting competition. Winner gets naming rights for next year's premium reserve. Marcus paled. He knew his palate was mediocre at best. His success had always been about marketing, not quality. That won't be necessary, our father interrupted, finally realizing the shift in power dynamics. But perhaps you could explain how. When did this all start? I moved to the center of the room, taking control of the presentation. Remember when you refused to fund my wine studies in France? Said it was a waste of time, and that I should learn the business side from Marcus instead. The screens showed my journey. Apprenticeships with master vintners, secret partnerships with old-world wine families, careful acquisitions of struggling but promising vineyards. While Marcus was slapping fancy labels on bulk wine, I was learning from generations of winemakers. When he was throwing marketing parties, I was studying soil composition and climate patterns. My phone buzzed. Wine Spectator requesting an immediate interview about the Bordeaux Estate acquisition. Perfect timing. But the investment required. Victoria protested weakly. The Anderson fortune is tied up in Marcus's ventures. I didn't use the Anderson fortune, I replied calmly. I found investors who appreciated my vision of combining traditional winemaking with sustainable practices and fair labor policies. People who understood that great wine is about respect for the land, the grapes, and the people who tend them. The screens displayed Anderson Global Vintners' impressive financial data, record-breaking sales, critical acclaim, and a reputation for excellence that had made us the most sought-after wine producer in the world. Your little shop, Marcus said slowly, realization dawning. The one we all mocked. It was just a cover. It was more than that, I corrected him. It was market research. Every customer who came in looking for affordable wines was actually tasting premium vintages from our estates. Their feedback helped us perfect our wines while keeping our identity hidden. Pierre raised his glass. To the new owner of Bordeaux Estate. A true guardian of wine tradition. The room erupted in applause, led by the very critics and collectors who had once dismissed me as Marcus's unsuccessful sister. Now they were all scrambling to secure allocations from my vineyards. My father approached slowly, examining his water glass. I suppose I owe you an apology for the seating arrangement, and the water. Actually, I smiled, water is essential for understanding wine. It cleanses the palate, allows you to taste truth instead of pretense. Something this family could learn from. Marcus, still struggling to process the revelation, grabbed one of the portfolios. These ratings, these awards, they're all for your wines? Every single one, I confirmed. Including the Grand Cru that you dismissed as overpriced last year. It was from our French estate. The screens now displayed a map of our holdings, each point of light representing another piece of my carefully built empire. From the historic cellars of Champagne to the innovative vineyards of New Zealand, Anderson Global Vintners had quietly become the most respected name in wine, even if that name had remained hidden until now. But the family connections, Victoria sputtered. The old-world relationships needed for these acquisitions. You mean like the Dubois family in Burgundy? I asked innocently. Or the Castellis in Tuscany. While you were all focused on Marcus's attempts to break into their circles, I was actually learning from them. Living with their families, working their harvests, earning their trust. My father sank into a nearby chair, the weight of his misjudgment finally hitting him. The sustainable farming methods you tried to tell me about 5 years ago are now the standard across all our vineyards, I finished. Along with fair wages for workers, environmental protection measures, and preservation of traditional winemaking techniques. The room had transformed into an impromptu wine tasting as servers brought out selections from my various estates. Wine critics who had arrived expecting another Anderson marketing event were now frantically taking notes, realizing they were tasting some of the most exclusive wines in the world. Ms. Anderson, a prominent critic called out, these organic methods you've implemented at Chateau Lumière, they've produced extraordinary results. I nodded, accepting another glass of the 1982 Bordeaux. Quality wine requires respect for nature, not just profit margins. Something I tried to explain at numerous family business meetings. Which you stopped attending, Marcus accused. No, I corrected him. I was uninvited. After you convinced Dad that my radical ideas about sustainable farming would embarrass the family. Pierre Bordeaux joined us again, carrying a very special bottle. Perhaps now is the time to reveal your other surprise, ma chère? I smiled, recognizing the distinctive label, the first release from my secret project in the Anderson Estate's abandoned upper vineyard. The one my father had written off as unsuitable for quality grapes. Ladies and gentlemen, I addressed the room. I'd like to present the first vintage from our newest label, Second Chance. Made from grapes grown on land this family dismissed, using methods they rejected by people they overlooked. The sommelier began pouring small tastings. The room fell silent as California's most respected wine experts experienced something extraordinary. This is. One critic whispered, this is exceptional. The complexity. The balance. Impossible, Marcus muttered. But even he couldn't deny what his palate was telling him. Victoria's carefully maintained composure cracked further. All this time, while we were making jokes about your little shop, I was building something authentic, I said. Something that honors what wine should be about, bringing people together, celebrating tradition while embracing innovation, respecting both the art and science of winemaking. My phone buzzed again, messages from other prestigious vineyards, suddenly eager to discuss partnerships. The news of my revelation was spreading fast through the wine world. The water was a nice touch though, I added, raising my glass to my stunned family. Sometimes you need to be humbled before you can truly appreciate what's in your glass. The following morning, the wine industry was abuzz with the news. Every major wine publication had my story on their cover. Hidden Wine Empire Revealed. Anderson's Secret Success. How one woman revolutionized wine making. I sat in my real office, not the small wine shop, but a stunning space overlooking the Napa Valley. The walls were lined with artifacts from wine history, each telling a story of tradition and innovation. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see workers tending to the vines using the sustainable methods I'd implemented. Ms. Anderson, my assistant Sarah, entered with the morning's press summary. The response has been overwhelming. Every major distributor wants exclusive rights to our wines. Including Marcus's distributors, I assume? I asked, though I already knew the answer. They were the first to call. They're reconsidering their current partnerships. I smiled, picking up the latest Wine Spectator. My face graced the cover, standing in the centuries-old cellar of Chateau Lumière. The headline read, "The New Queen of Wine: How Olivia Anderson Built a Global Empire in Secret." "Your father has called 6 times," Sarah added carefully. "And Marcus left several messages about discussing synergies between our companies." "I'm sure he did." I turned to the wall of screens displaying real-time data from our vineyards worldwide. Each location was reporting perfect growing conditions, thanks to the advanced monitoring systems I'd developed. A notification popped up. The first bottles of Second Chance had sold out worldwide in under an hour. The wine I'd created from the worthless upper vineyard was now the most sought-after new release in decades. "The Workers' Education Program launches today," Sarah reminded me. "The one you designed to teach sustainable farming methods." This was what really mattered, not the acclaim or the revenge, but the change we were creating in the industry. Every vineyard worker's child would receive a full scholarship. Every employee would have health care and profit sharing. The land would be protected for future generations. My phone buzzed, a message from Pierre Bordeaux. "They're finally seeing what I saw in you. Your mother would be proud." Yes, my mother. The one who taught me to love wine not for its price tag, but for its ability to bring people together. Who'd encouraged me to learn from the old vintners, to respect their knowledge while embracing new possibilities. The elevator chimed, announcing visitors. Marcus, Victoria, and my father stepped out, looking distinctly uncomfortable in my domain. "Quite an office," my father said, trying to maintain his authority. "I suppose we underestimated your ambitions." "You underestimated everything about me," I replied calmly, "including my capacity for forgiveness." Marcus stepped forward. "Look, about the water last night." "Was perfect," I interrupted. "Reminded me why I built all this. Not for revenge but for reformation. The wine industry needed change, less pretense, more substance."